One of the main reasons why so many people talk about maturity and growing up and adulting and all of this other kind of silly stuff as years go by, most of it has to do with the fact that people are falling out of health and haven't taken care of themselves. People are losing mobility, they're feeling tired, lethargic all the time, foggy-headed, they're not sleeping enough, they're grumpy, they're cramped, they're sore, they're stiff, they're hurting, they have very little mobility, they've got all kinds of injuries, ailments, they're taking medications for all kinds of things, for blood pressure, for, you name it, diabetes, like all this kind of stuff. And so a lot of people are not actually slowing down because of their age. They're slowing down because of toxic accumulation, a compounding effect of lifestyle. And a lot of people are not talking about being mature because it's some kind of rite of passage as you age. See, a lot of people will criticize, for example, an example with me. I, every single day, am running, crawling, jumping, climbing, squatting, flipping, cartwheeling, skipping, dancing, singing, playing instruments, being very childlike, which I will make a distinction between being childish. Childish is that immature, that emotionally unstable, especially, for kids, most of you people out there who are not good parents and have not had good parents either, right? Who are emotionally unstable and insecure and destructive and just don't have good habits at all, that are not self-confident, self-aware, not self-assured, self-reliant. Childish, which is distinct from childlike. So I play like a child because my body allows me to do it. And when people see that, they get embarrassed for me. And they say things like, that's, or certain things that I wear. I remember I used to wear these spiked bracelets. Aren't you too old for that? Or isn't that too young for you? Right? And things like this, because they can't do it. And they are conforming to the way that they dress, putting on all these old people clothes, right? Which is, it's really dumb. It's just all this restrictive, limiting, fake, superficial behavior because they haven't lived a healthy life and have accumulated and compounded and won the prize of inability, and all these people's guts hanging out and can't touch their toes and can't move and grumping and moaning and huffing and puffing and straining to get up and sit down and all this other stuff like that. And listen, I'm not making fun of people. I'm upset about this, and I'm pushing back on all of the idiotic type of criticisms and just staring in the face of the nonsense that so many people are brainwashed with because everybody's doing it, slowing down and being adulting and being professional and being proper and all this prudent type of prude and just what actually is the real weird behavior, which is very strange. It's conformity. That so many people opt to be less than. And so if there's an outlier, then they group together to attempt to ridicule and knock somebody off that higher level, because that's what they perceive it as, being a higher level, because it's like holding up a mirror to them Because when someone continues to excel and be healthy and be able to be mobile, fit, hyper athletic, it's a mirror being held up to them showing you aren't doing this. You could, because I'm not special. I'm not a mutant. I don't have superhuman abilities. I just do things in a certain way. Like Wallace D. Wattles in the book, The Science of Getting Rich, talked about getting rich requires doing things in a certain way. And rich in happiness, health, and wealth, it requires doing things in a certain way. And look, I shop for people on a regular basis, and every single time I am just not surprised why so many people are breaking down like an unmaintained car on the side of the road, overheating, burning oil, engine block cracked, just all this other stuff, screwed up paint job, all these things because it's not been maintained properly. Your body not being maintained, and so you're breaking down. Not doing the least bit of things, the mileage maintenance that a car does. I got this, I'll call it a subscription right now, but this service that I pay for so that every time I get to a certain amount of miles, like 10,000 miles, I got to take my car in and have the tires rotated and the oil changed. And people just aren't doing that. The mistake that most of you human beings are making is thinking that going to the doctor to get certain regular checkups or going to the dentist to get your teeth checked out, that's like the equivalent of maintenance. It's not. Maintenance actually is a daily practice. It's what you do every single day to maintain your body. Not just something that you do every quarter, when the doc says that you're supposed to come in for that. But like I was saying, I shop for people. So I see human beings are actively being garbage disposals for all of the trash that is being sold to them. And people are just, with no self-control, just going out there and all the snack foods and the packages and the sodas and the alcohol and just all this. It's just nothing but just layers upon layers upon layers of poison and toxins, and just gagging it down in their bodies, and then wanting to go on these crash diets and take these pills. I'm going to tell you right now, the world is in for a very rude awakening in a few years, and it's building up right now. People are going to look upon you. Listen. You do not want to be associated with any kind of program or organization that heavily promotes and pushes these GLP-1s, right? Like this Roe and these other, I forget what they're called, whatever, and all these celebrities coming on TV, like Charles Barkley, the basketball player, Serena Williams, or whichever Williams it is, and several other people, celebrities, getting on television and on these commercials and talking about, I lost all this weight on Roe, which there's a lot of evidence, at least that I've read and heard, about it being muscle and bone density that is part of that massive weight loss. But my point is that there's going to come a day. Do not associate with. I would highly recommend staying away from organizations like Noom and other things like that promote all of these GLP-1s and all this other stuff like that. The day is going to come when the organizations that are doing this, or at least the spearheads, or at least the organizations who created them, are going to be Fauci'd. That's what I'm calling it. They're going to be Fauci'd. They're going to be found out to have been. It's like some super villain experiment on humanity, just like how COVID is turning out to be, and all those people who were bashing the anti-vaxxers are now seeing what was really going on, And I wasn't, and I'm not an anti-vaxxer. I just didn't take the vaccine because I didn't trust it. Something didn't seem right about the whole COVID situation. That's another story for another day, and I don't want to get into that. I'm not a medical doctor, and I'm not telling people to not take vaccines, and I'm not against the COVID vaccines, and I'm not against you going to your doctor and doing your checkup. What I'm saying is that that's not the whole story. And what I'm also saying is that there's going to come a day when these organizations are going to be Fauci'd and found out that they have pulled the wool, which is very easy to do, over most of humanity's eyes and most of the people who've succumbed, who've fallen victim to this predatory marketing that's having them inject and take pills for this weight loss. When in the first place, they were already malicious and detrimental, this marketing that's happened to people to get them to that point in the first place. To get to the point where you're ordering pizzas and drinking colas all the time and just ordering and just junk food, and you do fast food restaurants for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and you're all that stuff, and you're eating all this bread and crackers and chips and cakes and cupcakes and live a little. You know, when people say to me, someone like me, who they see, instead of popping open a bag of chips, I pop open a pre-washed, a triple-washed bag of kale, and I eat that. You're eating that straight out of the bag? You're eating chips out of a bag. So it's not a potato. I can identify these are leaves from a plant. I can see this is a whole food that are leaves from a plant. I can tell where this came from. When I'm eating a piece of chicken, a chicken leg, I can see this is chopped off of an animal. I'm eating this dead animal. I don't know what you're eating. Some mashed up potato that's been reformed, some uniform shape for a chip, and then has all these neurotoxins and biochemicals, detrimental to the health biochemicals. You know, things that you can define by getting those medical and chemical dictionaries, and you can find out what they are, and that's fun. But you're putting all that into your body. And you wake up and you're stiff and you're sore and you got arthritis and heartburn and all this fatigue and stiffness and all this joint pain and lightheadedness and high blood pressure and type 2 diabetes, right? And all this other stuff, and then you claim that it's normal. Well, you know, it is, right? It's not okay, it's not good, but yes, it is normal. If we look at the word normal as being mathematically something that's statistically most frequent, then yeah, a lot of people are just letting themselves go, just falling apart. And so many people have so many excuses for everything, right? I had kids, and kids are stressed out, and my body took a toll on me, and you don't know and all this other stuff people will say. But I know some people who've had kids and haven't let themselves go like that. You've simply been brainwashed, and now you're defending the brainwashing because you're just invested into it. A lot of people just are so entrenched in what they've done for so long that when it is revealed to them that they've been bamboozled, it's very, very difficult for them to say, you know what, I'm going to make a change. And yeah, I've had the wool pulled over my eyes and I've been screwed by the system. Instead of doing that and making a change, they're going to point fingers at me and say I'm immature and I need to grow up because I'm jumping and doing backflips and running circles around 20-year-olds. Kids, right, who I'm still moving like I was when I was 19 and have the same physique and the abilities. I mean, it's crazy. Like, I'm going to take a quick break. It's been 15 minutes almost. I got to drop something off. I'll be back. One of these people that I went shopping for and bought a bunch of garbage for them to feed themselves and their family. I mean, you people. What you mean, you people? What do you mean, you people? You people who are suffering from this global brainwashing agenda, this mind disease that has infected your body because that's how it do, have no idea just exactly how insane it is. You just don't know. You don't know how loony it is to criticize. Think about this. You're doing things that are actually on a daily, regular basis poisoning yourself and causing your body to break down. And you're suffering from all these ailments and illnesses. And then you see me, who's thriving physically, who is actually I'm jumping and running around for hours out in the hot sun, kicking and flipping and spinning and crawling and jumping and climbing and squatting and all of this stuff. So I'm doing this, and you look at me and you're so nuts. You are so backwards, and just your thinking has been so corrupted by the system that we live in that you will look at me thriving physically and being healthy and say that is insane. That I'm the crazy one. That there's a problem with me for being healthy and playing and enjoying all of the benefits of having a physical body that serves me, while you are enslaved to medications and surgeries and all kinds of other ailments that are restricting and limiting your life, and all this hoity-toity, like proper, and gotta be, I'm an adult, and that's just not proper behavior, and be mature, and that's how. I don't know I don't know what good examples I can give of that, but you know what? Maybe I can, because I like certain types of fantasy and science fiction. It's mostly cinematically. I don't spend a lot of time reading a lot of science fiction and fantasy. It's very difficult for me. Although I have done some of it, and it's some of it's been entertaining. But in the cinematically, right? It's like, but it's not exactly the same thing, but it's this kind of attitude. You remember? So some of you may know, many people might not, about the whole, Batman versus Superman, when Ben Affleck played Batman. I think, right? Was that Ben Affleck? Yeah. And Henry Cavill was Superman. And Batman was so hell-bent on taking Superman down because he's an alien. Or better yet, maybe Lex Luthor's a better example, right? Because Lex Luthor didn't act, the way that they depicted Bruce Wayne's hatred for Superman was, he had brought a war with Kryptonians to Earth, and it hurt a lot of people, and he cares about a lot of people. But Lex Luthor just hates Superman because he's an alien, and he's powerful. And that kind of power coming to Earth, right, being known about, is very, very, it's very humbling, but also very, it's painful to some people. I remember learning about how there were some studies done, and you can look them up yourself. I have no citations for this, so you have to do the work yourself. But I do know that I had come across it and then also seen some other verifications of it on the interwebs, because you know how reliable the internet can be sometimes, right? But I saw some confirmation of it about how when people are confronted with someone who they discover are or seem to be more intelligent than them, they actually feel threatened in the same way they would being physically threatened by someone who's physically intimidated. So if they feel like someone's intellectually superior to them, like maybe somebody might have a degree, a master's or a doctorate, or have a really an interesting job like in tech, or they're like a data scientist or something like this, or a physicist, and some people actually feel threatened that someone around them is smarter than them, when really it's just all about someone applying themselves to something. People are smart in all kinds of things. There's physical intelligence, there's athletic intelligence, there's musical intelligence, there's all kind of there are various different kinds of intelligences. Academic intelligence is one very specific type of intelligence that has been created by human beings and systematized in a way that can be tested by in a certain way. It's a very specific thing that's been created by people, and it has its own set of rules, which are different than a lot of the inherent talents that some people might be born with. One of the things I thought, and I believe I may have heard someone say this before as well. I don't know who, again, look this up, maybe somebody prominent said so, but we are not all created equal. That is a load of bull manure. We are not all created equal. Now, we might all be created equal in the eyes of nature, or what some people might call God, the universe. But people are born with different abilities for different purposes. We're not all created equal. We're not created with the same abilities. I mean, if that were the case, then everybody would be the same height and the same weight and have the same bone depth. We're not all created equally. We all have different features and attributes. And it's why a lot of people, sometimes you'll look at some people in certain professions and they look very similar. And it's not because of the profession makes them look like that, although there is an epigenetic component to certain things that people do. Like if you look at people who are gymnasts or wrestlers or track runners, right? There's a very circular effect going on here. So part of it is they're drawn to that because that's their natural ability, and then from doing it epigenetically, the training and the things that they do tends to shape their bodies and reinforce those natural abilities that they have. But not everyone's created equal. Not everybody's created to be a runner. I mean, there are some homunculus people, right? They're not going to be track runners. There's some vertically impaired people who are not going to be basketball players, right? And there's a lot of that. Somebody who has vertigo is not going to be ice skating or playing hockey, but they might have other skills. A really interesting personal understanding of this is I'm very nearsighted and have been for as long as I can remember. But one thing that's very interesting about that is that I have magnifying, like up close vision that a lot of people don't have. I'm nearsighted. I remember I was sitting in an apartment in California with a friend, Amit, and he has 20/20 vision. My other friend Kevin has 20/15 vision. And I remember we were looking at coins, and I remember I bought a nickel or something, or a dime, really close to my eye, and and when I'm looking at it, I can see all these details and all the grain and all of the fine scratches and everything in it. And my friend Amit tried to do that, and he says, "How are you doing?" He's like, "Doesn't that hurt your eyes?" No. And I remember also then when I was wearing my contacts and my glasses, I couldn't bring it that close to me to see those details. It would start to hurt and feel weird. And so then I would have to take a magnifying glass and observe those details that my eyes naturally could see when I moved it closer, the object closer to my face. So you see, we're not all born equal. We have different kinds of abilities. Now, I do wish that, and a lot of times, that I had vision like other people and wasn't so nearsighted. It's crazy. It's really insane, the difference that my vision has been for most of my life that I can remember to when I put on my glasses and contacts. So, but this defense of mediocrity is absurd. And this is, I don't know what you call this, right? This is a manifesto. I'm calling people out. I'm just done with the nonsense. You see, through whatever fortunate series of events that I've come to realize that aging does not determine a certain, like, that you have to break down, right? And you have to slow down. I mean, because I have not slowed down. There are times that I slowed down when I was depressed, when I stopped doing certain physical activities, and I stopped resting enough and stopped eating a certain way. So there have been times when I've experienced it. I'm 180 pounds right now, which is a great weight for me. But there was a time when I got back from China, I remember I went to the gym. I was 221 pounds. And it felt terrible. I couldn't bend over and touch my toes with ease because my stomach was literally getting in the way. It wasn't bulging out a whole lot, although actually, yeah, it was. But that was part of it. My actual gut was getting in my way. I don't even think, it's hard to think about. And there were all kinds of things in my body. I remember years ago, I was working out with these guys, Sean and another dude, I don't remember his name. And we were lifting, and we were doing these overhead shoulder presses. And, you know, these guys were really strong. They were pushing a lot of weight around. We put 225 pounds on the overhead. And I did a couple of them, and I got to like 3 or 4. And all of a sudden I felt something pinch, and somebody said, keep going. So I did, and then I had to stop. And it was an injury that was there for a long time. It was so annoying that I pinched or did something really bad. And it went away. But then when I stopped being physically active and I started eating and drinking a lot and I wasn't taking care of myself, all these pains showed up in my body. I had this injury on my left ankle I jumped off from the second story of a building in Miami doing stunts for a student film for some friends at University of Miami. That thing that I talked about, between my shoulder blades from lifting, and maybe there were like a few other things. I don't remember what they are now, but I do remember I was having like some kind of like some pain in my back. It was just weird. My body, and I started to for a moment, I started to believe that it was because, well, I'm in my 40s. I'm getting older. I started to believe the hype, and I started to get discouraged, and I started to think, okay, well, I'm going to have to accept this. And I almost did. But then I decided to try something different. I decided to really, really, really take a good look at what I was eating and how I was moving, and take inventory of what was happening. And it was less than a month of just what some people might think of as extreme. I dropped a whole bunch of body fat. I got ripped really fast because I was already doing a very high level of physical activity. I had this thing where I arbitrarily decided that I'm going to do 5-minute rounds of kickboxing on the heavy bag. So, because in mixed martial arts and championship, the Ultimate Fighting Championship, for example, the championship fights, so the normal undercard fights in an event are usually 3 rounds that are 5 minutes each. And a championship bout has a limit of 5 rounds that are 5 minutes each. So I determined that I was going to do 5 rounds that were 5 minutes each. And I would just do that. And, if I had to pace myself, I would pace myself. But I would do that, and I would just make sure that I went that whole time, right? And so that time is like, I'm going 5 minutes, 1 minute break, 5 minutes on, 1 minute break. So in total, it was 29 minutes. And then, some cool down. But I was making sure that I was being as active as I possibly could. My point is that I was physically active, and I was doing a lot of things even with my heavier body. And so I got myself to be able to figure that out. But it was difficult. It was very, very difficult. But my body got used to training and even doing some acrobatic stuff with that weight on my body. And then I changed my diet back to something that had really worked for me before. And from that, and I'm not going to get into the details of it, but I developed something called FAST, which is an acronym for Food Awareness Subjective Testing, and something called FEAST, which is Food Express Awareness Subjective Testing. And so I implemented this certain way of eating, and my body, because I was already physically active, just responded. And I remember I went away for 2 months from my normal activities. I stopped going to certain places, stopped being around certain people and doing certain things. And when I came back, people were just, I don't know what they thought that I did, but people were surprised. There was one particular instance which is somewhat disturbing, but I came back and there was this guy who I thought that I was cool with, who, he's a chef, and he all of a sudden he wasn't looking me in the eyes anymore. He wasn't saying anything to me. He wasn't talking to me. He was avoiding me as much as he possibly could. Turns out that this woman that I was friends with, or thought I was friends with, he has a big crush on her, and I came back. I don't know if she was acting differently or what was going on because I was around, or whatever was happening, but he just started being real weird about it. And I know that it was because I completely transformed. Like, I look different. Like, there's not a day that goes by where people do not comment on how people are always saying, dude, you're so ripped, you're so jacked. People talk about being vascular. It's so weird, right? People are every day, men, women, everybody, like, you're so muscular, you're so fit, all the time. So apparently, my normal is impressive. My statistically most frequent is impressive to people. When to me, it's just, I have to be this way. I'm not doing it to impress people. I have to, because I don't have the capacity for dysfunction for very long. I'm very childlike in a certain way where I like to be able to play using my body as my main instrument. To be able to flip, run, jump, kick, spin, like doing all that stuff, climb, like that is the epitome. That is the height of joy, to be in control of my body, to the point where I've thought very long and hard that if I were one of those people, that if I couldn't use my physical body in a certain way, if I'm 100 years old and I'm slowing down, I'll be like, it's all right. But there were times when I thought that if I seriously contemplated suicide. especially when I thought, oh my gosh, I'm in my 40s and my body's slowing down, but it was because of all the weight that was on my body. That was really all it was. It was the way that I was eating. It had nothing to do with my age. It had to do with what I'm calling, it was just toxic accumulation. It was metabolic. So there's different kinds of aging. There's chronological aging, right? That's the age of time. We all experience that. But then there's also biological aging. And then there's also what I call physiological aging, and I just slipped up, but I'm thinking I might add this to my list, but there's also metabolic aging. And a lot of people are poisoning themselves over and over again with the accumulation. You know, one really great example that you could use, there's a really great book that I read many moons ago called A Guided Tour of the Living Cell by a Nobel Prize winner named Christian de Duve. And in it, he talked about the phenomenon of lysosomal storage disease. And from my understanding, this is a major component, or at least a great analogy, if nothing else, but for the declination of the human condition over time through the accumulation of toxins. These lysosomes are responsible for breaking down otherwise indigestible molecules that go through the bodies of cells that the cells can't break down and use for nutrition or otherwise. And when that happens, they build up inside the lysosome. And now, so the lysosomes usually break down things that are indigestible to the cell in general. But then there comes along other ones that are even indigestible to the lysosome. And when that happens, it builds up, it accumulates, and eventually it gets so overstuffed. If you imagine like a balloon that you keep blowing it up, filling it with air, and eventually it pops because it's reached its capacity. It can no longer take any more air inside of it, and that's what happens to the lysosomes. By the way, I wrote a great book called something like Rivers of Poisoned Blood, and it's on Amazon. Was that called Rivers of Poisoned Blood? And it's slaughtering the enemies of nutritional health. And then I created and that was a nonfiction book, but I named it I wanted to be all metal about it and name it like make it sound like a heavy metal album, slaughtering the enemies of nutritional health. And then I wrote a series of science fiction body horror books called the organelle series, because the lysosome is an organelle. It's one of the organs, right, in a cell, the cell's organs. So lysosome is one of them. So this series called Organelle that I wrote as a science fiction body horror, you can find it on Amazon under that. Organelle spelled Organelle. And so there are 3 books so far. I plan on continuing the series, but writing, even AI-assisted writing, is very, very difficult. People take years and years to master the craft of writing, and I use my dictation, transcription, summarization method to speak my books into existence, much like Earl Stanley Gardner, Dan Kennedy, and L. Ron Hubbard have done with their recordings. But I use AI to transcribe and edit. But it's very, very difficult. It's a very daunting task to write a book. But that's it. There's the Organelle series, and then there's Rivers of Poisoned Blood, Slaughtering the Enemies of Nutritional Health, which is the nonfiction one, and then the 3 Organelle books in that series. But the whole idea of lysosomal storage disease and the cells literally exploding because the lysosomes can't hold any more of that garbage that can't be digested is what's happening to the human body. Just use this as an analogy. It's a great example from biology about what's happening to people because of actually the things that people are eating that's going into their body, and their bodies are literally just breaking up and erupting with this stuff because your body can't do anything with it. These things that are being put into your body, it's not nutrition. It's trash. It's garbage. And the body can't handle it. And the more that it builds up, right? So you could also imagine that, like, instead of a balloon bursting, right? The other way that what happens in your body as well is, it's like, you know, there was this little insect. I forget what it was called. It might have been a hermit something. But there was this bug that I used to see around in Florida that used to pick up little pieces of debris and used to stick to its back. And maybe when I have this transcribed, DeepSeek or Google Gemini, you guys can help me identify this insect. But it was called a hermit something, or I can't remember what the name of it was, but it would just collect pieces of like dirt and dust and lint and fuzz and whatever stuff like that, and it would, you know, like how hermit or whatever, the horseshoe crabs or whatever crabs are the ones that go around and they change their shells every once in a while. It was kind of like that, but they would just pick up different debris. But just imagine that, imagine debris just kept on sticking to you and you didn't want it to, and it just kept on piling up on top of you, or somebody just kept on loading, or like a mule, and it just kept on loading it up until that saying goes, a straw that broke the camel's back, because it was just that one last weight that it could handle no more. Well, that's what's happening to people's bodies. It's not the age, it's not the chronological time necessarily. It's what you're doing over time. That's the problem. So I'm gonna stop right now, and I'm gonna continue this diabolical ranting and raging against the nonsense. But it really is insane how people are so protective of mediocrity and ill health that they'll see someone who's physically thriving and healthy and point fingers and laugh at that and criticize that. You are real. People, if that's you, I mean, we are in an insane world. This is a crazy planet we live on. It is very, very scary that people would rather group together and gang up in mediocrity and suffering and disease and pain rather than figure out how to thrive in their physical body and actually feel joy. There's so much to be said about that, and I'm going to say it when this continues. I am Hakeem Ali Bokas Alexander. That's Dr. Hakeem Ali Bokas Alexander, PhD from the University of Metaphysical Sciences. Signing off for, well, I'm not sure what podcast this is going to go on. Maybe Capa Guerra, the only war to wage is within. Yeah, probably should go there. Because this is a martial art. The battle that we're fighting. You've heard of PSYOPs, psychological operations? Psychological warfare? Well, that psychological warfare, it gets into your body because of your behavior. And it's also spiritual. The body, mind, and spirit are not separate. People have been bamboozled into thinking that it's separate and that you have to die in an afterlife and all this judgment. No, it's happening right now. When you eat garbage and poison, it's like inviting demons to possess your body. Or like how you have to invite vampires past the threshold of the home. That's exactly what you're doing when you eat and drink and be what you think is merry and living a little, when you're actually just dying. You're inviting evil into your body. That's real evil. I'm going to touch on that later, but for now, gotta go. Once again, Hakeem Ali Bokas Alexander, Capa Guerra Martial Arts. Capa Guerra, the only war to wage is within. That's KAPPAGUERRA for the AI machines that are going to transcribe this. It's a capital K, lowercase a, lowercase p, lowercase a, no space, capital G, lowercase u, lowercase e, lowercase r, lowercase a. Kappa guerra. The only war to wage is within.